So the Kansas City Chiefs have had a very busy few days, from thinking one of their wide receivers were going to be in quite a bit of trouble to bringing one back into the fold. From there, they shored up a key piece of their defense, lost a couple players in the process, and signed a couple surprising players today. So we've got to talk about all that and much more. But first, how about those? All right, there is a lot to talk about over the last few days. I'm going to go through it all quickly and talk about the signings that happened today as well. But this weekend started out very eventful, to say the least. This past weekend, Chiefs Kingdom immediately got sent on an emotional roller coaster when on Saturday morning, it was discovered that wide receiver Xavier Worthy was arrested Friday evening in Texas, placed in jail, and was facing a charge of assaulting a family or house member and impeding their breath or circulation. Well, that of course had everybody, including myself, in a bit of emotional distress to see yet another offseason incident happen involving a Chiefs player. Sadly, I believe the Chiefs have the most arrests since 2017, with the big one happening last offseason, and of course that involving Rashee Rice and that crash and flee incident, and he's most likely going to be suspended for it sometime this upcoming season. So the thought of two Chiefs receivers facing a potential suspension was not great, but obviously more important than that, the alleged charges Xavier Worthy was facing looked awful. Those were felony assault charges. Well, shortly after the news broke, Worthy's lawyers released a statement pushing back against the alleged assault, saying that Worthy's fiance, she was unnamed, but it's believed to be his fiance Tia Jones, was recently asked to vacate Mr. Worthy's residence upon discovery of her infidelity. He actually asked her to leave the home multiple times over the last couple of weeks, and she reportedly not only refused to leave, but made a number of extortive efforts prior to resorting to this baseless allegation against Mr. Worthy. Again, those were the words from his lawyers. Well, they went on to say that the complainant further destroyed a room, scratched Worthy's face, and ripped out parts of his hair, to which they have photographic evidence of, and believe it or not, but Worthy didn't even want to press charges after all this happened. Well, Saturday evening, just under 24 hours after him being arrested, Worthy was actually released. And we're far from done there. The district attorney, Sean Dick, said his office will not proceed with the charge against him. Quote, after interviewing multiple witnesses, Dick's office told the Statesman, so the article in reference here, this case is being declined at this time pending completion of the investigation by the Williamson County Sheriff's Office. So yeah, at this point in time, the case is not being pursued and no charges will be filed. And this does bode well in Worthy's favor, especially the fact that this happened so quickly. Now, while the DA's office isn't pursuing charges, it's worth noting that the Williamson County Sheriff's Office might still be investigating the situation, so they will continue to evaluate the case. Quote, as is our practice with all declines, should you develop additional information indicative of probable cause in this case, our office will consider that information and may present the case at that time to a Williamson County grand jury. So this does appear like Worthy's name was lied upon, or at the very least, the story presented to the authorities was partially inaccurate. And I really hate that for Worthy. I mean, whatever happened with the people that the police talked to, there was enough discrepancy there that they let Worthy go and basically said, nah, we're good on pursuing this case. In the end, I hope the truth is found out, and if Worthy's fiance actually did try to extort him multiple times and even lied about what happened on Friday night, then honestly, she should be the one being charged. It's honestly a delicate matter and one that I hope the authorities get to the bottom of sooner rather than later. After all this happened, Worthy took to social media sometime when he was released, simply saying, new beginnings, and showing a new haircut. Now, whether he had to cut his hair, since some of it was reportedly ripped out, or he simply wanted the change to reflect the new season of life, or even a little bit of both, I do hope the best for Worthy after all this, because holy smokes, this man went through the ringer, to say the least, over the weekend. Something else that happened on Saturday in the midst of all that chaos was actually wide receiver Hollywood Brown returning for another year. It was initially reported as a one-year deal worth up to $11 million, but at its core, it's a one-year, $6.5-ish million deal with up to $4 million in incentives. This is a similar deal to what he signed last year, but sort of takes into account inflation and the rising of the salary cap. The exact incentives aren't known at the time of me recording this video, but it's probably related to percentage of snaps or games played and certain milestones reached, such as catches, yards, and or touchdowns. Either way, This is a no-brainer move for the Kansas City Chiefs. Hollywood's stock didn't rise last year because he missed most of it due to that fluke sternoclavicular dislocation injury, and so he gets another form of a one-year prove-it deal with the chance to run it back with the same system, same team, and catch passes once again from Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I love the trio of Worthy, Rice, and Hollywood Brown. Hollywood can be used all over the field, specifically in the intermediate, and is a man coverage beater, which is much needed. So while Hollywood Brown is confirmed back, we have another receiver that was a pending free agent confirmed gone. Wide receiver Justin Watson, who signed with the team a few years ago on a futures deal, earned his way onto the roster, had a role that he played, then signed another 2-year deal after that. Well, he's gone. He's signing with the Houston Texans, who definitely need some wide receiver help, with Tank Dell out on injury, and then Stephon Diggs is gone as well. They did trade for a receiver recently, but Justin Watson will be a nice little depth piece for him, and I wish him nothing but the best. They still have moves to make in the wide receiver room, don't get me wrong, but they addressed other needs on offense today at the very start of free agency frenzy that we definitely got to talk about. But before I do, if your life is anything like mine, time is of the essence, and I rarely take time to prepare myself lunch on days when video content needs to get made, and that's where the sponsor of today's video, Huel, is here to help. Huel is no prep meals that do not compromise your health, and after using them for a couple months now, it's been a great fit for me and my lifestyle, plus it honestly tastes pretty freaking good. My wife also loves herself some Huel after her workout classes, which is a win-win for the family. Huel is ideal for when you're pressured for time, on the go, in a rush, or away from the kitchen. All you need is some cold water, 2 scoops of powder, and shake. That's it. You have yourself a very convenient and nourishing meal in just seconds. I love Huel's Black Edition, which is their low-carb, high-protein powdered meal packed with 40 grams of protein plus 27 essential vitamins and minerals. It's also plant-based, gluten-free, and has no artificial sweeteners. On top of that, Huel's products are designed by nutritionists and dietitians to give your body everything it needs from a healthy meal in an extremely easy and convenient way. In short, you get a high-quality, nutritious breakfast or lunch for just $2.50 a meal. And if you want to save time, save money, and eat healthy, use code HBTC15 for 15% off your first Huel order, plus a free t-shirt and shaker, a $40 value. That's code HBTC15 for 15% off your first order. Link is in the description down below with all the details there. Having a busy life shouldn't stop you from eating healthy, so check out Huel today. All right, before we get to all the signings from today, there's 2 things worth noting from yesterday. Trey Smith officially signed his franchise tag, which locks in a $23.4 million fully guaranteed 1-year deal. For now, KC's goal is still reportedly to work out a long-term deal, though I did find the language of that tweet from Ian Rappaport a bit odd, because reports went from a long-term deal with Trey Smith is very close to being done to the Chiefs would still like to get a long-term deal done with him after he signs his tag. Well, that means his $23.4 million cap hit is on the books, but the fact that he signed it so quickly could, in theory, be promising that no drama will be coming down the pipeline, even if a long-term deal doesn't get reached. No holdouts, no missing games, none of that. Trey Smith is saying, I want to be here and let's go. They have till the middle of July to get a long-term deal done, but I hope it's sooner rather than later so you don't have to tie up all of that money. Now, part of me wonders if Trey Smith signed the tag, opting to be patient for the beginning of free agency to kind of see what the guard market looks like after players sign with new teams. Last year, the guard market blew up, but it could rise even more and maybe potentially earn Trey Smith even more money. Either way, Trey is here for at least the year 2025. And Pretty Ricky, a guy who's been known to break a bunch of free agency news in advance over the last couple of years, still thinks a long-term deal gets done with Trey Smith very soon and says not to worry. Now, a bit before Trey Smith signed his tag, the Chiefs got their biggest deal done so far on Sunday, and that was by re-signing linebacker Nick Bolton to a 3-year, $45 million deal that includes $30 million in guarantees. That looks like to me it's really a 2-year deal, and according to Albert Breer, it's a pretty simple one, a flat deal. $15 million in each year with the first 2 guaranteed. Well, this has Nick Bolton tied as the 5th highest paid interior linebacker in the NFL with Jamien Sherwood, who actually got almost an identical looking deal as Nick Bolton a few hours after he got his. Kind of crazy. This signing gathered a mixed response from Chiefs Kingdom, by the way, because some were hoping he'd be let go, signing somewhere else, and that would then free up money for the Chiefs to make other more pressing moves. And I was a bit surprised, yet then at the same time, it makes all the sense in the world, and we should have seen this coming. Steve Spagnuolo runs a complex defense, and Nick Bolton is his clear-cut favorite player, the Mike linebacker, and is essentially the brain of Spags' defense. Yes, he has his limitations, especially in coverage. We all know that, but he's a great run stuffer with a high IQ that's been a huge part of the defense, and now he's here to stay. I mean, I'm happy for the guy. He's such a hard worker and truly earned this contract. He's had over 100 tackles in 3 of 4 seasons and has been healthy outside of half of 2023 with that wrist injury that he had. And when you looked at free agency, most of the top linebackers that were going to be potentially walking into free agency, they were instead getting re-signed by their own teams. That could have played a role in the Chiefs opting to keep Nick Bolton around. Sure, they could have gone the route of letting him walk, moving Drew Tranquil over to the Mike linebacker spot, increasing Leo Chanel's playing time, and then doing a combo of re-signing somebody like Willie Gay Jr. on a cheapish 1-year deal, and then drafting a linebacker in a very deep linebacker draft class. But their intentions were clear. Nick Bolton was the priority. They could and probably should still draft a linebacker, though, because Leo is on the last year of his deal, his rookie contract, and Drew Tranquil is about to turn 30, and I think he has an out with his contract after this season as well. And speaking of linebackers, late this evening, it was announced by Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest that the Chiefs are re-signing linebacker Cole Christensen on a 1-year deal. And this is a guy that's he's been a depth piece for the Chiefs. And last year specifically, he played like 141 snaps on special teams. So a Dave Tobe guy, not afraid to get his hands dirty, nitty gritty, use in case of emergency on the actual defense. But we'll see what ends up happening for him. For now, he is back. Cole Christensen, nice name. Next up, as soon as the tampering period of free agency frenzy began this morning, aside from X crashing and everybody scrambling to try to find out the news that was going on, it was announced that the Chiefs opted to sign a left tackle, a blindside protector for Patrick Mahomes. The only thing is, this is a guy that's played just over 800 snaps in 4 seasons, starting in only 12 games in his 4-year NFL career, as he's been the backup to longtime veteran offensive tackle Trent Williams, and that is offensive tackle Jaylon Moore. I'll get to his contract details here in a moment, but Moore was a 5th-round pick of the 2021 NFL Draft by the 49ers out of Western Michigan. Same school as Sky Moore, same last name too, and is still just 27 years old. He played pretty well in 5 games last year. Look at his PFF grades here for what it's worth, but he played pretty well in the 5 games that he played when Trent Williams went down to injury. And while his arms are a bit undersized, sub 34 inches, which is undersized for KC's typical preferences of an offensive tackle, in the last 3 seasons, he's allowed just 4 sacks and has been flagged for 0 penalties. So I will take that all day long. Another underrated thing about having him on the roster is that he did learn under one of the best offensive tackles to play the game in Trent Williams. So he's taking that knowledge with him to Kansas City. Brandon Thorn had this to say about Moore. Quote, he possesses coordinated, synced up footwork and hands that allow him to stay attached to blocks and pass protection. Then said, Moore doesn't have any standout high-end physical traits, but is a competent blocker who can compete for a left tackle job and provide quality depth. Well, at the end of the day, I think all you really need over there on the left side for the Chiefs is a competent blocker. Nothing insane, because even if the play is just serviceable, Mahomes has been able to make that work for years. The only thing that makes me a bit nervous about that is they no longer have the security blanket in Joe Thuney, left guard Joe Thuney. He was traded to the Bears last week, so he's gone. And he would normally help pick up the slack on any deficiencies from the left tackle. You don't have that anymore, and that might, in fact, be Kingsley Suamataia in there, who has very little experience at the guard position. Anyway, with all that being said, many were shocked at the price tag of this contract. Jaylon Moore signed a 2-year, $30 million deal with $21.4 million in guarantees. That's obviously $15 million average per year for a left tackle. That's never been a starter. A little pricey, I suppose, but when you consider free agency and how things have looked in the tackle market right now, I mean, offensive tackle Dan Moore Jr., formerly of the Steelers, just got paid $50 million guaranteed, $30 million in year 1 with the Titans in a 4-year, $82 million extension. So when you consider all that, Jaylon Moore is but a fraction of that cost for most likely close to similar play. Dan Moore Jr. would have been better, to be clear, but for that price, I don't think so, Tim. Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest sums this up nicely when he says that this is essentially a short-term trial of a deal, and with his 2-year deal having just $21.4 million of it guaranteed, the Chiefs can get out of this after 1 year. So maybe they opt to draft a tackle as well early in the draft and try to find their starter of the future in the case that Jaylon Moore doesn't end up working out. And then very shortly after the former 49er backup left tackle was signed by the Chiefs, KC then signed another former 49er via the very speedy running back Elijah Mitchell. This is a 1-year deal worth up to $3.5 million, a prove-it deal with incentives similar to Hollywood Brown, basically for injury reasons. We got to talk about that. I'll get to that here in a moment. Now, the soon-to-be 27-year-old, 5'10", 200-pound running back was one of the fastest in his entire draft class back in 2021, with San Francisco selecting him in the 6th round. He boasts a very impressive, unofficial 9.44 relative athletic score, but he's very athletic, with his size being the only thing to really knock about him. Well, I guess, and his injuries, that we'll talk about in a second. But from there, he had a very dominant rookie year, leading the team in rushing, putting up 963 yards and 5 TDs in only 11 games. He had 1,100 yards from scrimmage if you added in his receiving yards too. So looking very great to start his NFL career. From there, though, he's been derailed by a bunch of unfortunate injuries, one after another. Multiple knee injuries, including a patella sprain in 2021, an MCL sprain in 2022, and an unspecified knee strain in 2023. He also dealt with a fractured finger, a chest/rib strain or pull, a hamstring sprain in 2022, and then, most recently, he missed all of the 2024 season with a very serious hamstring injury. So after playing in 11 games his rookie year, he played just 5 games in 2022, 11 games in 2023, and 0 games, missing the entirety of the 2024 NFL season with that very serious hamstring injury. Well, that's why the Chiefs got him for such a cheap deal, similar to the Hollywood Brown contract, obviously cheaper though. Now, even with the addition of Mitchell, I don't think this solves the entire puzzle of the running back room. Pacheco remains to be determined on if he can return to his pre-injury self, and is also on the last year of his rookie deal regardless. Then, Samaje Perine was a free agent, and he just signed a 2-year deal with the Bengals, heading back to his former team. So he's out of the equation entirely, and that means maybe you could bring back Kareem Hunt after the draft. You could probably wait on him. And then during the draft, I truly think KC has to get a guy somewhere, as this has a very deep running back class. And then we sadly got news that a key piece along the Chiefs D-line is indeed moving on, but I'm very happy for him because he got a lot of money. Turk Wharton is signing a 3-year deal worth over $54 million. I believe it's around $30 million guaranteed with the Panthers. That is awesome. From an undrafted free agent to getting a huge payday after obviously winning a couple Super Bowls with the Chiefs, coming off of a career year. He's only 26 years old, still in his prime. He was a guy that I said, hey, hopefully the Chiefs can be able to bring this guy back. Would love to have him back. But it was reported by Jordan Schultz initially that he was going to have a heavy market, or at least multiple teams are going to be interested in him in free agency. And I think one of the reasons why the Panthers actually wanted Turk Wharton is because of this video here. This was last season at the Panther Stadium. A Chiefs fan actually fell through and Wharton caught him, preventing a pretty hefty lawsuit. So that has to play a little bit of a role too. All jokes aside, I do wish him the best in his next chapter with the Panthers. So there you go. The last few days have been very busy indeed. Make sure to let me know in the comments down below which moves surprised you the most, which concern you the most. I would just love to kind of get a glimpse of what Chiefs Kingdom is feeling right now, because again, some of these moves were surprising and not necessarily like, whoa, crazy, big splash move, but they were smart and calculated moves. But let me know your thoughts on all that in the comments down below. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?